Okay. Just make sure you did sign in as well, because you want to have your email address. Yes? Okay, I've got you, Lindsay. And do you want to be on the other list as well? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so if we could go in this order, and I'll just maybe say 3 at a time, and then we'll take it from there. The first 3 would be Philip Wolf, Dan Handelman, and Joe Walsh. And the microphone, excuse me, is over towards the food. When you get to about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, I'll raise my hand.
Hello, my name is Philip Wolf. I was a former chair for COAB. That experience that I was involved with for 2 years has given me some insight and raised some concerns about this new system and the new future that we are establishing. So I have a clarification question on alternatives. How many do you have on the table currently? Yes. Okay, I want to raise a concern about that because in my experience with COAB, from what I remember is that we had 5 alternates and a total of 15 members. And the city did not replace any of the open seats for 6 months. And I am afraid that that would happen again with PSEP. And I'm thinking that 6 alternates for 13 seats is not enough. So I recommend that you have more alternates to fill available seats, and that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dan Handelman.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Handelman. I'm with a group called Portland Cop Watch. We promote police accountability. We've been around since 1992. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you individually. We have a newsletter that comes out 3 times a year. So the bylaws start with the mission statement, and the first thing listed under goals is PCCEP members will independently assess the settlement agreement. The language of that was originally changed to will independently assess the implementation of the settlement agreement. And I think the mayor said at City Council that's what the intent was. I'm hoping you'll change that in the actual document you have here to be clear that's what we're expecting this body to do. There's some very confusing stuff here. I'm glad that Member Nolan called out the kind of parenthetical thoughts that are at the top of the document. There are a whole bunch of those throughout this. It makes it very confusing to read. Like when there are 2 choices, the second choice is still in there, and so when you're reading the bylaws, it doesn't, it's hard to tell what's part of the bylaws and what's just secondary thought. Like in the quorum and voting parts, there are parenthetical thoughts about type 3 advisory bodies are not required to have a quorum. That's nice, but I don't think that should be part of your bylaws. In terms of having a majority of seats necessary to make votes, I think that's really crucial for when you're doing policy issues. That is actually carried over from the COAB, and we completely support that. You may want to have a separate quorum for little minor things, like if you're going to start the meeting at 6 o'clock instead of 5:30, because you might not have enough people to make a vote like that. So, just that's something to think about. Section 5 says that meetings will be conducted to foster collaborative decision-making using either, and then there are 2 dots underneath that. The first one says consensus decision-making, and the second one says the public will be given the opportunity to provide comments. That's not a separate kind of decision-making, so I don't understand the meaning of that section. I would also add here that we're hoping that there's going to be a public comment period, like a general one, so you don't have to sign up to only before votes, that you can just say, I want to have a general comment to the committee. I think that would be helpful. There's the last page, marked page 7 of 6, so that's another issue. There's a thing that says the PCCP has to notify staff about verbal communication with interest groups, which I guess we can categorize as that. I think we're very interesting. And any communication before talking to the media, so that kind of excludes if you're talking to an individual in the community who may have influence, who may not be part of an interest group. So, I don't mind our communications with this body. We try to be transparent at Portland Coppers, but I think that you got to think about the different, how's an interest group just defined. So I think that would be a good thing to do. Section 10 implies the meetings will be treated as public meetings, which is really good. And again, interest groups are singled out in that section. Section 7 has a question on it. I think left over from your deliberations. It says, should we split this into 2 sections? That probably is not meant to be part of the permanent bylaw, just a thought. So thank you all. Look forward again to meeting all of you individually.
Thank you so much for that. Before we hear from Joe, I just want to mention that after Joe, we'll hear David Davis and then Lindsay. Okay, Joe, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Walsh, and I represent Individuals for Justice. I'd like to thank you for serving. Individuals for Justice loves volunteers. We rarely ever criticize volunteer. Sometimes, but it's rare. One of the things that happened with the co-op is they did not receive any stipends. No reimbursements. You have to put that in your bylaws. You have to get a stipend. Because this committee, if it's anything close to what co-op tried to do, will suck you dry. It'll take 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week. You'll be working full-time with no pay, no benefits. So put it in the bylaw somehow that you get reimbursed. You spend money on gas, get reimbursed. You spend money on the buses, get a bus pass. We will continue to monitor this. One of the things that we're aware of is COAB recommended somewhere between 95 and 100 things to the city via COCO, via the Department of Justice. One was considered. That's the information I have. Might have been 2, might have been 3, but it was low. So my question to you is, if you only can recommend, will you end up like the co-op, not reaching out to the people in the community, but having activists pissed? And that's what happened with the co-op. You had the activists on one side, and you had co-op on the other. I am getting older. Some say wiser. So I'm looking for bridges. I want so much to bridge the gap between the activists and the city and the politicians, who I like the least. We are a city already under siege. The mayor can tell you, millions of dollars have been stopped because we're a sanctuary city. We are in a battle. And I say we can't do it separately and get squashed. We can do it together and maybe we will do something better. We have to learn to trust each other. There are certain politicians that I cannot stand, but I'm willing to put my hand out. I am. I'm willing to put my hand out and risk ruining my reputation in order to build the bridges. Chief Outlaw and I had a conversation exactly like that.
Joe, can I cut you off? We're over 3 minutes now.
All right, let me wrap up. So in your Bible, get the money, honey. Because later on, don't listen to the promises. Get the money in the Bible. And we will support you when you're right, and we will nail you when you're wrong, even though you're volunteers. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Okay, next we have David Davis.
So my name is David Keith Davis, Multnomah County Cop Watch, and I've been filming the police for over 20 years. And I was first arrested in 2003 in Portland for filming, and I've been arrested multiple times. And this is a restructuring of COAB and COCO, which is part of the DOJ settlement for the treatment of the mentally ill. And actually, the last COAB was used as a weapon against the mentally ill. And when mentally ill members of the community, especially those with experience with police brutality and bad stuff that has happened to them with the police, they were excluded the most. I've had police show up multiple times at multiple COAB meetings to remove me, simply for exposing stuff. And this whole thing is basically just a PR gimmick. And you guys are being used as scapegoats or either gatekeepers for the city's failures. And just like the last round of COAB, this will fail miserably. Because in reality, Ted Wheeler is a total tyrant. He hates the mentally ill. He thinks it's a joke that I was used to derail the DOJ settlement. My name is David Keith Davis. You can go on your little phones if you got those and just put in DOJ. And you'll see that the city used me to say I was making sexist and racist comments because I mentioned that a city attorney who was in charge of COAB actually gaslighted me and accused me of upskirting her, even though I was filming up here. And if you're familiar with the concept of upskirting, filming up women's skirts, you gotta be below them at least. So she's gaslighting a mentally ill person who was asking her a question about me being called a white supremacist skinhead by former COAB meetings, which Philip, you know, he was a part of the whole group clap session, and he got in my face for bringing this up, and he's Jewish too. And there was actually a Rabbi Kahana, who served on the COAB COCO board before. He didn't seem to have any problem that a Jewish guy is being called a white supremacist skinhead who's actually mentally ill. And I do get my housing through Cascadia, and I have PTSD, and I get gaslighted by the city. And, you know, you can look all this stuff up. And they used people that made comments on my YouTube channel about me filming this lady, asking her questions about me being called a white supremacist skinhead, and I'm a Jew. And they used that to say that was somehow sexist because I brought that up during the DOJ settlement hearing. Because some people made some comments on my YouTube channel that might have been sexist. I don't have time to monitor everyone's comment, just like everyone else in this room doesn't have time to monitor every comment in the world either. So I don't know what the comments on my YouTube channels are. I don't monitor it. I don't have time for that.
Can we cut you off? We're over 3 minutes, but I have one more person to speak.
Cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next we'll hear from Lindsay Hotland.
try not to use this as a weapon against the mentally ill and,
Super quick
At least
comment.
accurate.
I just wanted to
Try to
advocate
reform
for
things.
including the word advise in the mission statement. Can you start over? I wanted to advocate for including the word advise in the mission statement. It currently says to solicit and exchange information, but I actually think the most important charge is to advise the DPD. So, we are an advisory body. I would advocate for including that word.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so with that, I'd like to invite the PSEP to return to the bylaws, the current draft that you have now, and I see a question here, and what we'll do is spend some time discussing them and seeing if we have any amendments or moves for a vote.